Hi everyone, I'm Natalie Wood, Lead Editor for UEG e-learning, and I've been joined by Dr Charles Murray, who's Clinical Director of Gastroenterology at Royal Free London NHS Foundation Trust and incoming Chair of the UEG Education Committee. Thanks for joining us today, Charlie. I thought it would be good to find out a little bit about how you first got involved with UEG.
Thank you, Natalie. So my involvement goes back some years now actually with the UEG, and like many others was lucky enough to come through my national society. So at that stage I was British Society of Gastroenterology Senior Secretary, and in that role it was suggested that I attend what was then the new National Societies Forum at the time when the European and Mediterranean Societies were coming into the UEG under one umbrella. That was a fantastic experience, really an experience of working with multiple nations throughout Europe and the Mediterranean countries, looking at how we could improve healthcare provision and gastroenterology in Europe as a whole. Through that role, I got elected onto what was then the General Assembly, is now the meeting of members, and that really gave me a good insight into the workings of the UEG, and again the opportunity to meet many of my peers and colleagues. Now, it was at the end of my time as BSG Secretary that the role of what was then chair of the e-learning task force came up, and subsequently became director of e-learning in the years ahead, and that was in 2013. And at that stage it was really a role that involved looking at how we were going to provide e-learning, so really in its infancy, and building on the Olga project which had already been established with the web editors Gavin Johnson and Bjorn Rembacken, and also the work of the then education chair Marco Bruno. So I had a huge opportunity there to build a new project. We did a lot of work very early on, and subsequently we're very lucky to then have multiple members of the team that we appointed, including yourself, Natalie, to bring expertise to that project. And really in a sort of very rapid, in terms of years, in the last 5 years have gone from relatively little online offerings to the sort of huge projects that are available today. So that was my entry into the UEG, and that's how I come to you today.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of your recent focus has been on the e-learning, and like you say, it's been a huge amount of work. And now education chair. So I wondered what made you want to take on the role of education chair, a bit more sort of broad.
Well, I mean, I've been very fortunate actually in the role of e-learning, in that it's given me an opportunity not just to work within education at the UEG for the last 5 years, but also to be part of the education committee. Yeah. And I think it's so useful for someone like myself to have spent so much time within the committee setting and to learn from and observe sort of other leaders such as Marco and latterly Heinz Hammer, to see how the Education Committee works and where, if you like, we could look to the future to plan educational content in the coming years. So that was a great opportunity. Why did I want to take part? Well, I think that in terms of developing e-learning content, I think we've done very well. I think we go from strength to strength. But it's obvious to us all that people learn in different ways. That classroom teaching we provide is second to none in gastroenterology. That online content, I would argue, is also second to none in gastroenterology. But there are obviously other ways of learning, and I think that within an education committee we're really well placed across Europe to think about different ways of offering education, and different ways that within the confines of just an e-learning team I couldn't be involved in, but I would like to be involved at an education committee level.
Yeah, that's great. You touched on the classroom courses there, and they're obviously very well established and very popular. I wonder if you had any particular thoughts about them for the next 4 years.
Well, I think, I'm taking the opportunity, and have done in the past, to look at the classroom courses we have now. I think that they are brilliant. I had the pleasure of meeting the evidence-based medicine team last night, and will be attending the course which is at UEG week this week. I think there's a place for classroom courses in the future. I think that mode of teaching works extremely well for many, many people. The problem is that the people that go aren't necessarily confined by the few that can attend them. So I think we need to be looking at ways of bringing that to greater numbers of people, and there are different ways of doing that. There's blended learning, so that you can offer the same sorts of courses across Europe to the same format but done slightly differently. And there's ways of using some of our great teachers to actually spread those educational techniques across our member societies.
Lovely. So obviously I'm talking to you today, which is at the very beginning of your time as Education Chair. So if I was talking to you at the end of your time as Education Chair, what would you hope to have achieved? What's your sort of broad vision for the role?
Well, I think we're in a really good time in education in Europe, and my time as Chair will just coincide really with building on, for example, the Blue Book and the curriculum that's been provided by the European Board of Gastroenterology and Hepatology. And we've already done a lot of work within the Education Committee and within the e-learning team to look at breaking down that into achievable, if you like, areas of gastroenterology and hepatology which we can map to. So with that as our framework, if you like, going back to your question, just framing that, within the next 4 years, I think we're in a really good position to start thinking about curriculum-based learning for Europe, to build on the expertise of our member societies, to augment and help those member societies where they may be lacking in, or we may be lacking in content that we can provide for Europe. Yeah. And at the same time to ensure that we involve our young people. We already have the Young Talent Group involved. I'd like to involve more young gastroenterologists from Europe in how we provide that education. And certainly by the end of 4 years, I'd like to think that they feel fully engaged in the process and really in control of what we're producing. And very importantly, we are a huge organisation covering a huge amount of areas of gastroenterology throughout Europe. I think it's incredibly important that everyone is getting those educational offerings, and that we should work as hard as we can to make sure that the coverage is total and that we're not missing anyone out.
Lovely. Thanks very much for your time, Charlie.
Thank you, Natalie.